Hey, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We have a special episode here today because one of my favorite people has come back on the podcast. She was on in the early 90s, or this is episode 136, I'm pretty sure. We had her on for a couple episodes. She was talking about her online business. But we had Kaitlyn Davidson back on today because we're going to talk about her real world business. And I was chatting with her through Instagram, as we often do, Kaitlyn. And just kind of going through a major event that was going on in your music school. And I was like, this would be such a good podcast episode. So I wanted her back on to talk about how she moved Hyla Music Studio from the location she had been for 7 years, I believe it was, to a brand new location. So welcome back, Kaitlyn. It's good you're here.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah.
Welcome,
cool,
Kaitlyn.
cool.
Great to see you again. Thanks for coming on the pod.
Yeah. So in jumping into it, I don't know, Nate, I think I just want to start with some of the questions I have for her, because as I usually do, I like to not ruin it by asking the questions beforehand. I just kind of like to hear it live for the first time. So should we just jump to the questions?
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Okay. So Kaitlyn, I'm just going to jump into it. What prompted you to move Hyla Music Studio after 7 years?
So in case people don't know,
give a little bit of background. Let's talk about the size of the studio, all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll back all the way up to the beginning a little bit. Highland Music Studio used to just be me. It was a side hustle after my public school teaching job. It was called Kaitlyn Davidson Piano Studio. And I used this church choir room and I rented it by the hour to teach lessons after work. So eventually there was a preschool in their basement and they moved out. So I just got lucky in that situation. So I immediately moved down and got my own room. And again, I was a bit lucky in this situation where there was lots of little rooms that are perfect for private lessons and some larger rooms that are perfect for group lessons. And that was pure luck. So I was able to grow one room at a time, even when I was ready to add another room, I would just add that one room. I didn't have to rent out a whole building, like some people have to do that. So that was extremely lucky. And I realized not many people will be that lucky. So that's why I was in that basement for so long, was because I could grow in a healthy way. I could grow room by room. And the rent was not very much. And that also helps when you're growing, getting started. So I was in a church basement for 7 years, I think, until now when I started looking in August and quickly found the space. I was actually in Brooklyn, which is funny, but I found a commercial real estate agent and he sent me some properties and I went through all of them, but one of them didn't have a photo really. And I was like, maybe I kept going through it over and over, I don't know about these. But then I was like, wait, this one's I'm skipping this one because it doesn't have a photo and I'm not giving it a chance. So then I Googled it and I was like, oh, it looks cute on the outside. And I was like, it could be perfect. Found some it used to be, I'm not even going to say what kind of business it used to be. Before the previous tenants. It's not the previous ones, but the previous one before that. So I was only seeing pictures of it looking crazy, disgusting. And I was like, well, I guess we'd have to really renovate it. Long story short, I realized it's already beautifully renovated. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. And I was freaking out. I went to Brooklyn just for fun to meet up with a friend in New York. And I was there just stop focusing on work. Think
right. Right.
I just knew it so hard. Before I even saw it in person, I was like, I just have a feeling about this and I couldn't calm down about it.
Let me jump in and ask some questions. So you started the search in August of 2023.
Yeah.
And then you found it pretty quickly. How long was it until you started the process of actually signing the lease or buying the building or whatever it is you did? Was that just a couple months? When did that process start?
So I think it started to become September when
Okay. So really fast.
Yeah. I think it was the end of August when I was there and telling my realtor, I'm serious about this one. Let's look at it. Then we looked at it. I make decisions really fast. Sometimes I make them too fast. that muscle is strong for me.
Sure.
And I was like, yes, to this one. I didn't even look at anything else because it was so perfect. And my realtor was amazing. He helped me get started with the negotiations, and it did take several months. I think that's probably normal, but this is the only time I've ever experienced it. But I think it's pretty normal. I was researching, like, is this normal?
Sure.
It took a while. It took a while, several months, and it wasn't until January, like 3rd or something, that I actually signed the lease.
Interesting. So, Nate, I know you probably have a billion questions. I just want to throw a couple things in here. I'm going to kick it over to you. First off, yeah. So, I think in the show notes, we're going to link maybe to Kaitlyn's Instagram for Highland Studio. And then, Kaitlyn, I don't know, we might follow up with you and ask for like pictures of the inside. We'll put them on the blog post, or we might even have our video editor like maybe put them on the YouTube version of this, which everybody go to YouTube and check out Great Music Studios channel, subscribe there. And then I would also just say that we've done a number of episodes on commercial location. You can find those in our episode guide. It's on all of our blog posts now. And then if you just go to greatmusicstudio.com/7FMS, you can find our episode guide, and we have it all categorized by the topic we talk about. So just go to the category called commercial location. You'll see everything we've ever talked about with like changing buildings, getting a new space, negotiation, like all kinds of topics like this. And obviously this one's going to go right into that category as soon as this gets published. So, so Nate, let me kick it over to you. What questions do you have?
So I'm just curious. I want to zone in for a minute on that feeling piece, because it strikes me, you said I'm a fast actor, meaning or you put it as I make decisions quickly. But I think actually that's the first place I'd go as to why you felt you needed a new space. You sort of outlined. You didn't actually give us the details of like where the pressure was on the business that made you require a new space in your mind. But so I would like to hear that. But before we go there, can you just talk about that intuition piece for you? Like, where has your intuition served you really well? In other words, you've been like, this just feels right. I'm going for it. Can you give us another example? Like, you left a public school teaching gig. I'm curious.
I had a vision board. I'll be honest, I haven't been as good about having a vision board lately. Like, I'll put it on Pinterest, but I was very intentional about it a few years ago. I need to get back to it. But I did have a vision board, and I had a storefront, or like this cute little business that kind of looks exactly like the one I have now. It's kind of freaky.
Yeah.
And I already had the vision years before, because I actually started looking in February 2020 for a new space. And I'm glad I didn't find one, because we know what happened in March.
Right.
But I had the vision for years ahead of this. And so I knew exactly what I was looking for, even down to like the decoration or like the style of the building. It's kind of like industrial looking, kind of like how a loft would look. It looks cool, like artsy, like a music school would look. It looks great. It's really nice. It's still renovated. And it was only 3 minutes away from the other one. So that was another huge thing. And it also had parking spots, which was a huge thing in Atlanta. Like, that's rare to have parking spots sometimes if you're in the city. And we are in the city of Atlanta. So the answer to that question is I already knew what I wanted for so long. And I think that's why I could just dive in.
It doesn't sound like you were actually making a fast decision. It sounded like you were making a really intentional, well-conceived decision, and then you manifested that alignment, like the place arrived, but you'd already done a lot of the detailed imagination.
Yeah, I think why I freaked out so much when I was in New York was because I knew, like, deep down, like, this is the thing I've been looking for. It was freaky.
Before I ask that next question that you were referring to, Nate, I do just have to say this is one of the things that I emphasize so much with coaching clients. Oftentimes coaching clients come to me, and a big part of their problem is that they have not defined specifically what they want. I will have people get on calls with me, and I ask them, how much do you want to make? And they can't even give me a straight answer about that. There's all this Like they're verbally processing all these thoughts that are going through their head. And this isn't a criticism. This isn't me throwing shade at people, but it's why people often have a business result that is suboptimal because they don't even know what they want. And I will just point out, as we've been talking about in some of the recent podcast episodes, the Founders Forum is coming November 1st of this year. And we're helping a group of school owners define what it is that they want and spend good time with me and Nate, fleshing out systems in their business so they can get results as quickly as possible. Because as you know, Nate, I'm a big fan of efficiency. I'm a big fan of taking as little action as possible to get the result that you want. I'm not saying be lazy. I'm saying don't do extra work. So if you love the podcast, you're going to love the Founders Forum. You can go to growingmusicstudio.com/forum, sign up for the interest list. It doesn't obligate you to anything. We're just going to be sending out more and more information over the coming months, but it is coming soon. So Kaitlyn, why was now the time to move for you? Was it just because the opportunity came up? Why were you even looking, or were you always looking? I'm just curious if there's any other light that you can shine on this, because what I'm hoping this draws out for people who listen to the podcast or watch it on YouTube is I do talk to people on a fairly regular basis that are thinking about moving, starting a new location, moving out of their home and into commercial location. So I just think this little bit of context will help people to know.
Like I said, I was going to do it in 2020 and then I didn't. So I waited a couple of years, obviously. And so why now? There were several reasons. One reason was we were truly running out of space, at least for private lessons, running out of those little rooms. So I was starting to be like, okay, I can only grow Music Together, the Mommy and Me, or I can only grow the group piano program and nothing else. So that was kind of one of the reasons. Another reason was like, I didn't want to be in a church forever. I always wanted my own space. So there was that. There wasn't any parking at the church. So it was all street parking. Whoa. And behind us was a neighborhood. And we were starting to get emails of people being frustrated with us for causing all this parking and all these traffic issues. So I didn't feel good about that. I felt guilty about that. Another reason was I think I tend to do this. So it kind of mirrors what I did when I started the studio. It was a side hustle. I felt financially secure starting it. I've never felt financially insecure any part of having this business. So like I quit my job when I could pay my bills. So the rent for this building, and I knew it would be this way because it's just how it is in this area, is going to be like 5 times more than what I was used to, which is terrifying. It was very uncomfortable to sit with that. And I felt comfortable this year because my online course for my YouTube channel, that whole other thing, I was like, okay, if I move and for some reason I fail at everything, we know that's not going to happen. But I was like, worst case, absolute worst case, my online course could pay the rent. And that helped me feel better about it. So some people are more brave to take financial risks. I don't think I am. I like to feel secure. That was a big thing for me.
Keep going.
I have one more.
No, keep going. I love this.
One other reason was soon after I moved in to the church, another music school did also move into the same building. And there were enough similar services to where it felt uncomfortable. And so I was always wanting to move for that reason as well. So
this episode is sponsored by grouplessons.com. If you're looking for a group piano method that is easy to implement in your studio or school, look no farther than Piano Express from grouplessons.com. Because unlike most group piano methods, Piano Express allows students to make individual progress within the context of a larger group. And because of the at-home practice tools and gamified curriculum, students using the Piano Express method make faster progress than the average method book student. And that helps students feel excited, accomplished, and motivated to learn new music. Also, the system is really adaptable. We've got teachers using the system in their home studios, And we have many large commercial studios running our 3-room model that allows you to see up to 24 students per hour with just 2 teachers. So if you'd like to learn more about Piano Express, navigate to grouplessons.com and sign up for a free demo. You'll get to look at the method, our app and teacher guides, and we'll even give you a sneak peek of our implementation plan that has helped hundreds of studios start their group program in just a few weeks. Kaitlyn, in August of last year, when you were starting to, or when you made the decision to move to this location, what was your enrollment at that time? Roughly.
It was 300 something.
Okay. High 300s though, right? Or was it mid?
I should know the number better.
Yeah.
But I think it was probably 350, maybe.
Okay. You've gone over 400 at some point, haven't you? Because I remember us having...
We're there now.
Yeah. Because I remember you sending me an Instagram message around that, like, hey, we hit 400 for the first time. So
we're past it now. But at the time, I don't think... If you're talking about August or January... I think I was there in January, but I'm not sure about last August. I should know the numbers better.
Kaitlyn, where do you want to be in the new space by, let's say, like January of 2026?
I would like to be over 500, and I think I could definitely get there.
And the new space gives you the capacity with room to grow.
Yeah. So we can double in size in our new space.
Yeah, just a quick note to all of our listeners. Know where you are now, know where you want to be in 3 years, know how you're going to start the journey in 1 year. And just to be clear, if you're already out of space and another music school is moving into the next door, then that's one clear indicator, that it's time to move.
Yeah. I think I want to ask an impromptu question here, Kaitlyn. And again, you might have already addressed this somewhat. And if you feel like you have nothing to add on this question, just let me know. We'll cut this whole section. But what was it like? I know you mentioned that there were aesthetic qualities that really attracted you to this, but were there any other things that attracted you to this specific location that you were like, we have to get this building?
A big one was that it was 3 minutes away because Atlanta has very bad traffic. And if you are even slightly farther away, parents will be like, no, I don't want to deal with that traffic. So that was a big one. The fact that there were parking spots, the fact that the street it's on is really peaceful. It feels really safe. There's other businesses on it, but it's like offices and they're kind of cute too. Like it's not, it's just like cute. It's a cute street. That's what I'm trying to say. It's peaceful. It's on the Beltline. It's close to the Beltline, which is like a walking path that's going through the whole city. They're really building it out. And so people are like scootering. People are riding bikes to their lessons. Like, it's just great. It just has a great like feeling about it. I love that people like ride their bike to the studio. That's cool. I actually recently got a bike too. So, that was another reason. Also the rooms. So we did do a build out. And so the shape of the rooms, I was able to cut them into smaller lesson rooms. And so that was another thing. So we did do a build out as well. And I was able to carve out the studio in the way I wanted to. And that was also a big part of it. But it wasn't like an incredible like overhaul. Like I didn't have to overhaul the whole building. It was already beautiful. I basically just had to add some walls and some doors, and it wasn't like too big of a thing.
Interesting.
You mentioned parking, which might sound mundane to some people listening here. And then you mentioned that it's only 3 minutes away, but those are like the really practical check boxes that need to be checked, So
yeah. Another great thing about it was the landlord paid for a lot of my build out. So
that's
again,
huge.
like that was huge.
Daniel, don't we have, I'm looking at our commercial apps, but I think we have an episode where we talked specifically about the build out. Maybe it's that 122, sort of, should you scale your school, assessing risk and opportunities, but we've got some really good ones in there where we talk about that too, Kaitlyn, in more detail.
Yeah.
So worth checking out. Okay. Back to you,
so,
Daniel.
Yeah, Caitlin, what do you think was the most difficult thing that you dealt with in the transition? And maybe another way of asking that is, what did you learn? You know?
I've learned so much.
Oh, I'm sure. And that's why you're on.
Um, I would say so you're asking what's the most difficult thing?
Yeah, let's just go there first.
Um, Realizing how many things I needed to change after we moved. I didn't realize how much I needed to change. And I don't know if need is the right word. I want to. So it's not like we wouldn't survive if I didn't change things. But basically, I think our operations need to improve a lot. And so I think environment plays a really big role. So for example, if you're coming into a church that's over 100 years old, no matter how much you clean it, it feels dirty. The bathrooms are always gross. I couldn't control it. You're going to feel differently about how seriously you take it. And so just because I'm walking into this what feels very serious building that I know I have to take care of really well, and it just made me level up. And so I don't have to change things, but I want to, because it just being in there inspires me to make the studio better. So I would say that's a cool thing, but it's also difficult because it's a lot of work and it requires some difficult decisions to make. And it's kind of scary sometimes when you're doing that. So I would say
Okay.
that's the most difficult thing.
Let me ask a follow-up question to that. Was there anything about the process of negotiations, signing paperwork, the kind of the commercial transaction part of this that was difficult or challenging, or did it feel like signing a mortgage? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
It was very difficult, if I'm honest. And I really struggled during that just because I wanted the building so bad. I just wanted it to
Oh,
be signed, and it was killing me because I wanted to leave the church so bad and it was so perfect. I was like tortured the entire fall. It was very difficult. But it was only difficult in that I was just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for it to be done. I didn't personally do the negotiating. It was the realtor. Mine was amazing, amazing. So I wasn't really stressing about how do I talk to them to negotiate all this stuff. I had that handled, but for me, it was hard, just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then finally, when I signed the lease, it was like, oh, thank
yeah.
God it's not. I didn't even though when we were done negotiating, it was like Christmas holiday break. And so we weren't going to sign the lease until January 3rd or whatever. Even then, I was like, nothing is real until it's signed. And I still couldn't
Yeah,
calm down until it was signed.
I bet.
So that was also really difficult. I'm sure other people would struggle with that. I really struggled with that.
Kaitlyn, I love what you said. Sometimes I feel like by the way, on the pod, my role is to just highlight amazing things that our guests say because I love them so much. So forgive me if you just hear yourself being bounced back by Nate. But
Okay.
I love what you said when you were like you said the environment plays a big role. We have totally felt that in our new
Yes.
space. We felt that in teacher retention. We felt that in attracting amazing new teachers. Like the number of applicants have sort of gone through the roof. The number of people that are, wanting to increase their investment in the school has gone up. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, I'm going to be honest, I didn't realize that
Yeah.
when we opened this new space. To me, it was much more about the in-classroom experience and the in-community room experience for the students. I was always sort of like customer focused,
Yeah.
but I love your observation. And I wrote down below on my dry erase, it's like moving gets us to think differently.
Hmm.
And it sounds like you're deep in that right now. Like
Hmm.
you said, one specific example was that you're thinking differently around operations, like how you're going to operate the new space. Is there anything else specific that you're just like, you have it in your Evernote and you're like, I know I need to dig deep on this now that we're in the new location?
Um, it really is just structuring the team a little bit differently. For example, when we are in the church, you feel secure in the space because there's other people in the church. So, it was fine that no one was in the building really in the morning much. But now it's like, I feel like I need people there in the morning while classes are going on. You don't want to have no one in the waiting room while the mommy and me class is going on,
Right.
way in the back. That's not even safe. Just things like that just change. That's a really simple one, but you're like, wait, I need to fix this.
Like, it almost sounds like your org chart gets a little shuffled where you're like, oh, there's a role I didn't even realize I need.
Yes. So
There's a new role and responsibility. Like, yeah.
Yes. It's things like that are
And that
simple,
goes-
but you're like,
And that goes back to the operational things you were talking about, Kaitlyn. You wouldn't have realized that until you got there. And then speaking to what you said, Nate, being in the space at Brooklyn Music Factory multiple times now over the last year and a half, it's such a gorgeous space. I would invite people to go to YouTube and watch episode 118. It's Nate, myself, and Alyssa, one of the coaches here at Grow, just sitting in the lobby there having a really great discussion. It was a podcast episode. And you can just kind of get a sense of how it feels. And it is a very impressive space. And again, check out the pictures that we're going to put on this episode, or that we've put on the video of this episode that we got from Kaitlyn of her space. Because I mean, you sent me pictures as it was getting built out, Kaitlyn, and then the end result has just been, I think it's gorgeous. So it is a piece of this that I don't think a lot of people think about. And that is such a good insight from both of you. Nate, any other thoughts, or should we move on to the next question?
Let's move on. I love it.
Okay. So Kaitlyn, if you could go back to August 2023 and go through this entire process again, which sounds like you wouldn't want to do that because of the emotional toll it took on you in the fall last year. But if you could, would you do anything differently about either the commercial transaction part of this, the search, how you moved, decisions you made during this entire process? Would you change anything?
I wish that I planned ahead more. I toss on this. Like, I can see why I did it the way I did it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, but I'll still answer it, but I still toss on it.
Yeah.
I wish that I planned ahead a little bit better. Like, I probably could have thought, okay, you need someone in the waiting room in the mornings now. Like, I could have realized that beforehand. Like, I could realize that beforehand. I wish that I just sat down and like shut my eyes and visualized what it would have been like and planned ahead more. That goes with things like that, and like even decorating, setting up the space. Because I had the keys to the studio from January to April when we opened it, and I didn't move anything until spring break. And I didn't think about the fact that everyone was going to be out of town during spring break. So I ended up basically setting up the space nearly by myself.
Oh.
And it was very, very stressful. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Because we also, again, poor planning, I was like, let's have a party and we're going to have a band with our teachers. And it was really fun. But leading up to that made it worse that I was setting up the building and being like, there's a lot of pressure because people are coming in here for a party too. So I better not mess this up. So it was like, I really like should have thought about that a lot deeper. And like made sure people could help me. I could have sat down and just shut my eyes and visualized, okay, how are the job positions going to change? I could have, gone back even years. Like, I still need to work on this. Like, you asked me, what number do you want in January 2026? And I didn't really have a good answer because I still need to work on this. I don't know because I'm still learning this lesson because I need to have more confidence and like, it's sort of a confidence thing, or it's me trying not to think I can predict the future, but I think you can lay out plans. I have heard you guys talk about it on this podcast. I need to work on that personally and just be like, this is where I want to be in a few years. It feels easier now that I have more clarity. I know where I live and I know, what location we have and stuff, and that helps. But I wish that I planned ahead in like every way. I wish that I, like when I was thinking of like the admin job positions, I wish I thought, will this be what we need in 3 years? Not what we need now. I've just learned that a lot, to think where do you want to go as well when you're setting up the job position, not just what you need right now. I hope that made sense. I felt like I was scattered, but just plan ahead better. Like even if you just sit down and close your eyes, like where do you want to be in 3 years, and what are you going to have to do now to be there?
This episode is sponsored by BigMusicGames.com. As our listeners know, Brooklyn Music Factory is all about a fun, fluency-first approach to music lessons. And at the foundation of our teaching methods are rhythm, melody, harmony, and songwriting games that challenge students as young as 4 years old to train their ears and flex that musical mind. Because when you set an intention of gamifying every single lesson, you're going to find improved attendance, increased play at home, and higher student retention. So we've set up a website just for our listeners so you can start playing today. Go to bigmusicgames.com/7FMS and create your free account. Again, that's bigmusicgames.com/7FMS. And if you join today, I'm going to send you a personal invite to join our weekly teacher training call with me and Greggy Bizzle, our chief game designer. Go ahead and put play back into practice with Big Music Games.
And I will just say before Nate jumps in here that I know you're a fan of Tony Robbins, and he has a great quote. What's talked about, I say this on the podcast, I know I've said it at least a dozen times. What's talked about is a dream. What's envisioned is exciting. What is planned becomes possible, but only what is scheduled becomes real. It is such a powerful quote. I know you know it too, Kaitlyn.
Yeah.
But I want to give you a little grace here, though, because something a coach of mine said to me in 2017, her name's Melissa. I've worked with her since then. I was bemoaning the fact that I had taken so long to build this second business, and what was I doing with my 20s? Because in 2017, I was in my mid-30s, and she said, Daniel, you can't skip your own evolution. You can go back and run that 100 times and you'd have made all the same decisions because you are who you were. Mm-hmm. And so the tension that I kind of hold in my life, that what you just said there, Kaitlyn, really brings up for me is that, yes, be dedicated to planning, be as organized as possible, write things down, measure, journal, read books, listen to the best thinkers in all of history around business and planning and productivity and that sort of thing. Let all that sink in. And then you still have to act as you would. You still have to act in the way that made sense to you. So if we go back to, I know, and even asking that question, Kaitlyn, it's kind of going against my own thinking about that. Because if we could take you back to August 2023, you would run it all the same way, So it is a little bit of an unfair question to ask someone. At the same time, hopefully for people hearing this now is experienced as knowledge for them. It's like, oh, I could sit down. Like Kaitlyn said, if she could go back, she wished she could sit down and actually plan an org chart. I could do that now. So your life, my life, Nate's life, it all serves as a warning sign for people.
Totally. You're getting the reminder now. I mean, oftentimes, Kaitlyn, I'm like, okay, listeners, please pause and take notes right now. Yeah. Like this is a pause moment to just jot down the note. Whether you act on the note or not, at least you have it written down. Back to that, back to our Tony Robbins quote, which I love, Daniel. I'm glad you shared that again. I need to hear that weekly.
Yeah.
But it's what's totally awesome, Kaitlyn, is like, I mean, for I hope for all of our listeners, but certainly for many of them, they're going to be like, what a badass. She moved, like 7 years into this, she actually got her dream space. Like that's that's like just an awesome accomplishment. But what I wrote down here is like, hold on a second. Like Kaitlyn had dream boarded really specific things and it manifested. Yeah. And when we use the term manifesting, it's not like I dream, and then it appears. We all know that it takes a whole lot of work and a whole lot of showing up consistently to have that thing appear to us, right? And it did appear to you, and the space you really wanted. And I sort of wrote down in my notes here, I was like, it's almost like we need a dream board for specific buckets of our business.
Yeah.
Does that vibe with you? Like, could you imagine having a dream board of just people or a dream board of just operations?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I have been kind of mapping out, like, because during all these changes, I've kind of been journaling. I've journaled since I could write. That's like a fun fact about me. So my early journals are not talking about cats and dogs, like silly, but I've journaled since I
Wow.
could write, literally.
I love that.
And I've been journaling again, just being like, okay, how do I want my life to look in January? And how do I want my studio to look in January? So it wasn't like a vision board, but I was writing it out in like a paragraph. And I think that just gives me more clarity. So right now it's not looking like a vision board, but it is looking like a paragraph. Like, how do I want my day to day to look in January when I've cleaned up all this stuff? So
yeah, I love that. Before I pop it back, can I just read one thing I wrote down, which is moving totally sucks no matter what. Like, moving always sucks. Moving alone is a nightmare.
Yes.
So like, and I totally get, I know the feeling you experience because I've been in Brooklyn Music Factory alone setting up studios before.
Yes.
And I've been like, for the love of God, how did I get myself here?
Yeah.
And then I put again,
Yes. I do it over and over. Why am I doing this to myself? I have been calling all these contractors. Like, I've been getting people to help me with it because I get very frustrated when I have to do like manual labor, and I'm like, I didn't start this business to like be moving all these things that I'm not strong enough to move these things, and that's when I get really frustrated.
You literally can't move the thing.
Oh my word. That's funny. Maybe going into the close here, there's a series of questions I have that all kind of are similar, but they have a different focus. This move, so I'm going to ask the first of these three questions. How did it impact your staff?
I would say it's been mostly good for them, probably 100% good for them. Everyone was really excited. I announced it. We have like a teacher dinner every December before like the holiday break. And I was like, by the way, I have a surprise. We're moving. And everyone was like, wow. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So you'd kept it under wraps for months then?
Yes.
Wow.
To most people. Some people knew, but like my admins knew and stuff. But I didn't tell the teachers yet. I wanted it to be a surprise for them.
That's so cool.
So most of like 90% of the people didn't know. So it was exciting. They were pumped before I even showed them the pictures. So they were just excited to not be in that basement anymore.
With the spiders.
Yes. I think I've gotten nothing but positive feedback for them. And their rooms are nice. The bathrooms are nice. It's easy for them to park too. Like, it's just nice. And it feels like again, your environment matters.
Yeah.
And sitting in a basement all day isn't that fun. So I think it's been positive for them. I think they are feeling the standards are, raising. And I haven't fully restructured yet. So I've just been telling them that I'm restructuring. But I think in the long run, they will be glad for the restructure because for them, most of my staff is teachers. I am trying to implement the teacher tiers, and I've been listening to that podcast on and taking notes from Nate. Trying to make my own teacher tiers. And so I think it will still, even though I'm restructuring, it's going to be ultimately good for them. They're going to know how they can grow as a teacher, how they can grow within the company, things like that. So I think ultimately it's going to be a good thing when I finish that project with them.
Cool. Second question. How did it impact your customers?
Everyone has seemed excited about it. Again, parking's easier, safer street. The waiting room's way nicer. There's a stage in there. It's just great. I mean, it's just such an upgrade. Like, I don't think anyone is
Right.
upset about it. There was only one person who said they weren't going to move with us out of
400
400.
plus.
So I think they'd like it.
Has it had any impact on like your enrollment or retention that you can tell, or is that just too nebulous to know?
We did notice, and I don't have the exact numbers, but there was an improvement for summer retention. This summer, I noticed a lot more people stayed. So it's still a little bit hard to tell because we've only been there in April. And I do think the previous summers, some people were traveling a lot after the pandemic. They wanted to travel more. And so I think that could also be a factor, that now people are getting more used to regular life and not feeling like they have to travel so intensely. So yeah, I think it's a little bit hard to tell right now. But I'll probably have a better answer like as the school year goes. I can compare the numbers between the previous year.
Yeah. Final question. How did it impact you?
It has been stressful, but I feel like I've woken up. I think I was kind of not excited about the studio for a while, and I'm serious, it was all environment. I didn't want to go to the studio very much. I didn't like being in the basement. It frustrated me about, competition being next door. So I just kind of like cruised with it. I just let it cruise along. So I think it impacted me in that I feel more excited about it, and I can see I want to plan a longer vision for it. I feel excited to I've been because I haven't taught since 2020, like my own lessons in the studio. And I don't think I'm going to teach lessons, but I was like, maybe I would do some workshops or one-off things. I feel more energized to do things like that. So I feel like it's just waking me up. I feel more excited to be a business owner. I feel proud of the space. Before I was not really wanting my friends to see it.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, our website looks really beautiful and modern, and then you get to the studio and it's not that exciting. So I just feel reignited as a business owner. I feel more excited about it. I feel more excited about even teaching. And it's just like a new chapter. It feels exciting. And environment is, I think everyone, Matt, cares about environment, but I think I kind of probably do a little bit more than other people. When I was deciding my degree in college, it was music or interior design. I loved it. I love designing things. I designed my website. I design anything with the designing things. I like it. So I've had a lot of fun with making it a cool space and just making it feel like how I really wanted it to be. And so that's made a huge difference for me. It's great. It's very exciting.
For nearly 3 years, Nate and I have released podcast episodes week after week after week. And while the podcast has helped thousands of owners, we want to go a level deeper and offer a greater level of support to our listeners. Our goal has always been to help you escape the trap that befalls most music school owners, namely the owners who decide to scale their music business often make less income than they did when they were teaching alone. And unfortunately, they often spend more time on their business to generate that smaller return. Nate, why do you think that is?
I know why that is, Daniel, because we experienced this when we began Brooklyn Music Factory 15 years ago. They're just huge mistakes that we both made when scaling up. Even with all of the information available to our industry, so many owners that you and I personally have coached are making those mistakes too.
And that can lead to all kinds of problems when trying to scale a music school. Well, how much time do you have? We've done about 120 or 130 episodes on this. Things like low retention, difficulty in finding committed teachers, frequent staff turnover, low or no margins, a feeling of constant overwhelm, confusion about what actions to take on a day-by-day basis, focused, ineffective marketing, long hours and still not enough time to get everything done, or returns, no cash during the summer. I could just go on and on, Nate.
Yeah, I know you could. That list hurts, but I
does.
have great news. Something big is coming, Daniel, because on November 1st of this year, we are going to launch the Founders Forum. So if you suffer from some, most, or all of those problems that Daniel just listed, then we got great news for you, because we are inviting you to join a committed, high-energy group of school owners. You're going to have access to the playbooks and processes that have helped Brooklyn Music Factory grow to 7 figures. The combined wisdom of a coaching team that has decades worth of experience in helping school owners grow. School owners just like you. Support from Daniel and myself while you implement profit-exploding changes in your school. And an insider's look at other schools in our industry. You're going to have access to the pooled knowledge of a group of owners that are going all in on growing their school.
We're going to be releasing more information about this opportunity over the coming months in advance of that November 1st launch date. And if you'd like to be the first in line to join the forum, or you'd just like more information, head over to growyourmusicstudio.com/forum, and let's make this year your best year yet. Again, head over to growyourmusicstudio.com/forum. And if you're listening to this in the future, you can join the second wave of owners by applying at that link.